Investing in archers is probably the most difficult troop type to do it in Rise of Kingdoms, especially from the early game up until the end game. And today, I'll be making my investment plan for archers. We're going to start at KVK 1, even before KVK 1, and we're going to move all the way to Season of Conquest. So if you're interested in being an archer main and you want to know how to properly invest in archers to make yourself the best setup account as possible for future investments and also have fun in your early KVKs, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, the first thing we should start off with is the earliest stages of Rise of Kingdoms. This is where it's going to matter not as much what you pick, because you're going to invest in mainly epic commanders. And the main epic commanders I recommend, they're really Hermann and Kusunoki. Kira is a good option, but she's really hard to access, so for most people it's just Hermann and Kusunoki as the main two epic commanders you're looking at. I would really work towards expertising both of these commanders, because when we look at KVK 1, there isn't a whole plethora of archer commanders. There's really only 3 options, and Hermann and Kusunoki are really good options for free-to-play low spenders. Not only are they good, they're just overall going to be a stronger march that you're going to probably use in KVK 1 or 2, depending on your investment strategy, and we will talk about that. But if you're looking for your really early game march, I'm not going to go over it too much, just pick up Kusunoki and Hermann. They're going to be really good together, and they're going to trade well. On top of this, another thing you should consider is your equipment, and really when you're looking at the early stuff, just get your lowest rarity things. For archers, you've got stuff like the edged boots, you've got things like the Windswept Warhelm, you've got the Helm of the Phoenix, and you've also got some really good stuff such as the Commander's Chestplate or Heavy Armor. So these early game equipment, they're just good to get for archers. You can get these easily from stuff like the Crystal Chest, so in my opinion, I'd really just go and pick those up. It would be worth it, and it would be fairly valuable for your account. So picking these things up, I don't see it being a very big issue at all just for the early game. Just get all that low rarity equipment and try and stash up on some of the more important blueprints. If you can get any Dragon Breath stuff, you can't get any leadership pieces in the early game. So if you can get Dragon Breath chest plates or gloves, that is good. Just because if you can get the blueprints for those, it will save you for later. So if you get any fragments, use it on Dragon Breath stuff, mainly chestplate and gloves, because there is a different set of equipment, which we'll talk about later. So when it comes down to early investments, you really just want to prepare yourself for that end game. Be looking towards that future potential. Be mainly making Ebony. I think that's still the best thing to do for the early game. And then just keep running that Hermann Kusunoki in the really early stages. Get them both towards expertise. You'll end up using both of these commanders, and they're going to be really, really nice to have in your early game arsenal. Now, moving on to KVK 1, this is where we kind of start to look at a few more options for you. Now that you've had a bit more time to play, you might have got really lucky. You may have an okay level El Cid or an okay level Thumos, and you're going to get access to YSG. Now, this is where you're going to make probably the biggest decision you'll end up making for your account, and that is, do you invest in YSG or do you skip YSG? And the reason I say this will be your biggest decision is because it kind of comes down to, I want to say, 2 real factors. Do you want to have early game value or do you want to have end game value? If you want to have end game value, YSG isn't going to be your best option. But if you want to get more early game value, YSG is going to be a very good option. The reason is YSG is amazing in KVK 1 and KVK 2. He's going to trade extremely well in those KVKs. He's going to be probably the top or one of the best commanders you can run, and he's going to still carry some value into Season of Conquest. He's not useless. He just isn't as good as some other Season of Conquest commanders. That being said, though, if you want that early game value, KVK 1 and 2, YSG, in my opinion, is almost like a must-have investment. Without him, you're not going to get as much value in those early KVKs. Your kills are going to be pretty bad, and it's not going to be a very fun time, because most people will have access to one of these commanders, whether it be YSG, whether it be Charles Martel, whoever it may be, you will have access to them. And at the time of recording this video, there is no commander refund. Now, it has been in discussion that early game players could get a commander refund, and in that case, invest in YSG. If that has released, I would check with some people in your kingdom. To my knowledge, it's not in the game just yet, but if it is in the game, by the time you're looking at being an archer main, expertise YSG is really good. But as of, I think it's currently November 2024, you shouldn't get YSG if you want endgame value, but if you want to have some fun in the early game and still have a good position in the endgame, YSG is not a bad choice. For me personally, if I was in this situation, I like those early KVKs. I think it's worth the experience because at the end of the day, this is just a game, and I'd be willing to get YSG. And if you're a medium or a low spender, I think YSG is within that affordability range where you can say, yeah, I'm willing to spend some gold heads on him, even though it's not the best long-term investment. I can still use him in this early game. I'll still get some value out of him in the KVKs. So you just go and get him. In my opinion, I'd do it just for the fun of those early KVKs, but if you really want to get long-term value and you want to do really good in Season 3, Season of Conquest, and any KVKs beyond that, you'll notice that YSG isn't going to be your best choice. There are a lot of better endgame commanders, and you would rather just save your gold heads since they're going to be the most valuable thing that you will be able to get. Other than that, if you get any events where you get to pick gold heads, you've got the options between El Cid and also Thutmose. Thutmose is a better option. Overall, he's just got a slightly stronger kit than El Cid, just as an all-round commander. He's also newer as well, and also when you get to Season of Conquest, if you have him at a really good level, he does have a better museum relic than El Cid. El Cid's relic is only like a bit of attack and some skill damage. Thutmose, he gets a ridiculous amount of stats. So getting access to Thutmose's relic is going to do more for you than El Cid's relic, which is why you'd probably want to pick him up, or I would say you definitely want to pick him up over El Cid if you have that option. Also, if you're willing to spend money and you want to spend a little bit on some commandos, you want to just spend money on the daily special offer, which is good value. In the early KVKs, Thutmose and YSG are really good options to pick out of here. To my knowledge, Thutmose comes before YSG inside of this daily special offer. So if you want to get access to Thutmose really early on or for KVK 1, he's a really good pick. And of course, whenever YSG comes in, he's going to be an amazing pick if you're willing to spend that money on your account. And again, daily special offer is one of those higher value things. I think you can expertise a commander for around $300 there, which is really good value compared to just using your gold heads. In terms of other stuff we should note for KVK1, at this point, hopefully you've been able to get some form of an Archer City skin. Probably nothing better than like an epic. I doubt you can have a legendary. So if you can get any epic skin that gives you health, defense, whatever it may be, just use that skin. It's going to help you. I mean, there used to be negative stats with city skins. Those were removed recently. So just use any city skin that's going to give you archer stats. It'll be very good for you. And use the Ottoman civilization. Definitely a very nice idea to have for KVK1. It's just going to give you this really big boost in power compared to other players, because most people, their civilization isn't going to be as good as the Ottomans. Archers just benefit from it so much. And at the earliest stage of the game, where your stats aren't as high, the amount of stuff you can get from the Ottomans are ridiculous. If you are, for whatever reason, running multiple marches, you can use France, because you do get hospital healing speed, and that can be very nice for you. But, in my opinion, I think Ottomans is going to still be your number one choice. I used it in my KVK1, and I was destroying people with Herman Kusunoki. Eventually, I did have YSG, but with Herman Kusunoki, I was still doing really good with the Ottomans, just because of how ridiculous it is, the amount of stats you're getting, and also the Janissary unit. So having Ottoman, really good idea for KVK1. Earlier KVKs, choose more development civilizations, but KVK1, you can definitely go with the Ottomans. In terms of equipment, you want to be working towards having a proper epic set by now, I would say. The epic set of archer equipment is really good. The revival set, it's the only troop type in the game that has an equipment set, and it's just going to give you good stats. So you'll get that revival set of equipment, or as close to it as you can by the end of your KVK, with the Golden Age helmet, and also with the most important piece, the Flame Treads, because those boots are really good. They're going to give you health, they're going to be in your arsenal, or at least in your equipment, until like the end of the game. So just having the Flame Treads, really good idea. Make sure you try and get those. The last thing I would craft is probably the Revival Chestplate, because the Commander's heavy armor is really good. So really, the last thing you craft is the Revival Plate. The first thing you should try and craft is the Flame Tread. So that would be like just a rough equipment order. I'm not going to go fully in equipment because it'll take too long, but just try and get towards an epic archer set. It is going to be really beneficial for you. Also, one last note for KVK1, this also applies to KVK2, you're going to have access to the Call of the Loyal. Pick it up, it's going to be nice for you. It's really, really cheap to make. You can dismantle it, get all your materials back, and you're just going to get 5% march speed. Archers are really slow, you'll notice that even in your KVK1 and 2, so this is going to be a nice, just free accessory to fill up your slots. And then the other one would probably be Silent Trial or Delane's Amulet, whichever one you can access first. Usually, you get the option between both, and I would pick Silent Trial over Delane's Amulet. So if you can, get Silent Trial and also Call of the Loyal. Eventually you will replace this with either Delane's Amulet, or you will just use a legendary accessory when you hit Season of Conquest. Moving on to KVK2, you're pretty much going to change nothing. KVK2 is a waste of time for archers. You get access to Tamiris and Edward of Woodstock. They're going to do nothing for your account. They're not going to be strong at all in Season of Conquest, and YSG is just way better than them. So anyone that invests in Tamiris is either either a whale or you're doing a lot of swarming in Season 2, but really it's just whales. Whales are going to use Tamaris, and whales are going to use Edward. So if you're not a whale, don't even consider these commanders. They absolutely suck past Season 2. I don't think I put any gold heads into either of them. So if I were you, I wouldn't be putting a single gold sculpture into any of these commanders. Just leave them. Don't even bat an eye. Trust me, you will not regret it, because they're pretty much completely useless for you. Just continue working on YSG, or if you're deciding to skip him for that long-term value, consider working towards getting that. Well, I mean, you will have Herman and Kusunoki expertise. Just continue running them. I did forget to mention your YSG pairing. Just use one of the epic commanders, or if you have a good level Thutmose or El Cid, you can run them with YSG. I would say at 5511, they're going to be stronger than the epics, as just like a rough assumption. I don't know for sure. If I had to guess though, 5511 is the best situation for those commanders. So if you can get El Cid to 5511 or Thutmose to 5511, don't use your gold heads on them, but if you get them for free or you're buying the daily special offer, they will be an upgrade over the epics, and you can run them in Season 2 and maybe even in Season 3. In terms of your archer equipment at this point, you should have a full set by the start of your KVK2, full set of epic. I know I had a full set and I had stashed up materials as well. Keep in mind, when I did it, I swear, maybe I'm just going crazy here, it was much easier to get access to a epic blueprint. I mean, I was able to get a ton of them out of the crystal chest. Nowadays, it just feels like they're a bit harder to get. Now, maybe I'm just going crazy, and maybe I'm just getting very unlucky, and I was very lucky back in the day, but I was getting way more epic blueprints. Like, out of 30 keys, I'd get 3. Nowadays, I'll struggle to get 1 or 2. So, I think that maybe back in the day, it was a bit easier, but even then, you'll have equipment events that come around, and I don't think we have any right now, but you'll have events that come around that will give you access to some amount of epic blueprints. So, just getting access to as many of them as possible will be good for you. You should have close to a set. You might be able to even start refining some of them. I don't fully recommend refining epic equipment, but some of the stuff I can say would be a good idea. So flame treads, you can refine it, and you can also talent it, and then you can kind of just start refining these lower tier equipment. It's going to cost you some gold, but it should give you a bit more value in the long term, especially because legendary equipment, it's going to take you a while to get a full set, unless you were spending a lot of gems on equipment like I was, and I migrated back from KVK2, so I did KVK2, went to KVK3, and went back again. Unless you're doing what I did, which is really hard to do nowadays, you're probably just going to stick at looking at trying to get a talented epic set at some point. You probably don't need a full set. If you can skip some of the lower value stuff, some of the attack pieces I would skip, but anything that's giving you defense and health, you can try and talent that, and it's going to be good value. Also, at this point, you should be trying to get a full blueprint of the Dragon Breath chestplate and also the Dragon Breath gloves. Another option is if you get the Ian's Choice, you can also save up or wait until you get the Milky Way, which is technically going to save you from needing to get a Dragon Breath chestplate and gloves, which will save you gems, because these two pieces are accessible through both the Lucerne Scrolls and also the Crystal Chest, but the Dragon Breath stuff is only accessible through events, so stuff such as the Holy Knight's Treasure or things such as the Dig event. They're going to be the main ones where you get access to these equipments, but the Milky Way and also Ian's Ballads give you about the same stats, and they're accessible a little bit easier and much cheaper, so those will be better if you can get access to them, but it is a bit of a luck game. So if you want to get guarantee, you'll probably go Dragon Breath Van Braces and also Dragon Breath Chestplate, but maybe you get lucky and they show up, for example, inside the Lucerne Scrolls. They might be towards that end tier. At the moment, there is a blueprint pick one choice chest. So this is for legs, not very useful for you because I'll tell you the best set in a minute. But if there is a chestplate or a glove thing here, you can probably pick Milky Way or Ian's Ballads and use those as your legendary pieces. If you can craft those pieces, go for it. It's going to be a good option. You'll end up using them in Season of Conquest, and they're going to be powerful. If you can't afford the legendary pieces, don't worry. It's not the biggest deal right now. You want to try have them by Season 3 though, but once we get there, that is a bridge you will need to cross at that point. But for now, just try and get them. It's going to be a good idea to have access to those blueprints and keep making ebony. Trust me, it's going to be your most needed material. These other ones you can get from random chests or choice chests by just playing events. So whenever you do events, you'll get access to these random chests. You can't pick where these go. Often you'll get enough of the other materials from these because archer equipment needs a very small amount of them. But when it comes down to ebony, you're going to need a crap load, so you want to just keep making as much as you can. Now moving on to Season 3 and Season of Conquest. You've officially made it to the end of the game. You've done the hard yards now. You've done KVK 1 and 2, the worst places for archers in the game where it sucks the worst. You're now in Season 3 and Season of Conquest, and you've kind of got a whole nother KVK to go, because I've heard, I don't know this for sure, because I don't do Season 3, I've heard that archers don't come out until the end of Season 3, so you may have to still run your weaker archer march until you get towards the end of Season 3, but then you're going to get access to a lot of archer commanders. You're going to get access to every single commander that you didn't have access to before that you'll see here. So if you haven't seen any of these commanders before, you're going to get access to every single one of them the second you hit Season 3 and the Wheel of Fortune for archers comes around. Again, to my knowledge, I don't think you get access to archers until just before Season 3 Kingsland, which can be a problem, but if you have enough time, you can easily make up enough kills in Kingsland to make up for the whole previous KVK, or the rest of that KVK. So, archers are going to be really fun in Season 3. You're finally going to get access to the new strong commanders, and this is where you're going to make your first investment. And in my opinion, you've got two real options. If you want to go with one of the more original routes, you just get Herman Prime as your first commander. And the reason you do him first over Zulang, Herman has a bit more synergy with YSG than Zulang does. You will probably have to run YSG as a primary or Herman as a primary, which they're not the best primary, I'll give that, but they have a lot of synergy together. Herman has more march speed, he has march speed, Zulang has no march speed, and Herman's got a bit of defense. Those two things are going to be really, really important with YSG, because he's got no march speed and he's got no defense until you get his relic, and I don't think you get relics until about Season of Conquest. Maybe Season 3 you get access to relics, I'll talk about them soon, but you're going to want to get Herman Prime as a first commander if you want to go with a more original route, where you're going to get Herman Prime and eventually you'll get Zulang, and you run Zulang Herman as your first full archer march. It's really good now. It's got probably another 2 to 3 years left of it being a field-worthy and strong march, and Herman's got really good debuffs that will just overall make your ball stronger for future and even now. Just having the extra skill damage obviously lets Herman and YSG both deal more damage, and it's a really good double AoE march with a bit of a mix between some survivability through, of course, the march speed and defense, and also a little bit of strength through that debuff and a lot of damage in the march. So it's a really good march for a first march, and I think Herman is better than Zulang. Zulang, though, is a good option if you're willing to be a bit more risky on the field, but if you mess up with him, you're going to really, really mess up. So with Zulang, he's not as forgiving as Herman. Herman's got march speed and defense, Zulang's got nothing, and Zulang is like putting YSG with YSG. It can be very strong, it's very, very tanky, it's very high damage, but it's not very tanky. It's really glass cannon, and it's a bit of a dangerous march. So that's why I do recommend Herman first, and you can just take Herman to 5-5-5-1, and then you can go and get Zulang to an expertise level once Herman is at that point. And once Zulang's at like 5-5-5-1 as well, he's going to be better than YSG, and you can run him with Herman. So you run a Zulang with a Herman as like your first main archer march. The other option you can go for if you don't want a traditional route is you can get Shajar, and I've been using Shajar YSG in my Season of Conquest KVK. Keep in mind, haven't had much time to play that KVK, and that's a whole separate video, and it's still really good. I mean, I was using it in Kingsland. It was probably my best or second best trading march. Zulang Herman was slightly better, and my Crystal Tech, if you want to see what it looks like, is horrible right now because I barely played this KVK. If you look at my Crystal Tech, I've literally got, literally, improved morale 0. Most people had it at like level 6 to 10 at that point in Kingsland, and I was still getting relatively good trades with Shajar because she's really good with YSG. So Shajar primary, YSG secondary, a really good initial march, and in my opinion, it's going to have better long-term value than Zulang with Herman. The reason I say that, Shajar is mighty healing, and also, well, she has the ability to mighty heal, and also the ability to deal true damage. They're the two things that archers are most likely going to pivot towards, and if you focus on that, it can give you a lot of value in Season 3 and Season of Conquest. So do keep that in mind. Shajar with YSG is a good march. I think it's definitely a possible first investment. In my opinion, I wouldn't risk it unless you know the next archer's coming out by the time you hit Season 3. So if you're watching this video and new archers have been confirmed and you've seen their skills, check out some of my newer videos at that point. I'll be able to talk about it more then. But at this point, Shajar is a very good first option with YSG, and in my opinion, will give a bit more value than going with Herman. But if you want to get that Zulang Herman march, which in my opinion is still stronger than Shajar with YSG, you're going to get Herman first, but he's going to be slightly weaker than running a Shajar with YSG. But once you get Zulang, it will be stronger. So it's, again, a bit of a short-term sacrifice for a bit more long-term value, as you most likely won't be able to double expertise these commanders on the first day. If you did save up all your gold heads, Zulang with Herman, instantly get that march up as soon as you can if you were just running a Kusunoki Herman the whole of the initial KVKs. So Zulang Herman, really good first option if you've just hit Season of Conquest or Season 3 and you've got access to the number of gold heads you need. both at least minimum 5551, and you can just run them and you'll just get a good trade. Now, also, one last thing is you probably will end up moving towards 2 marches, and I would just say Shajar with YSG is a really good second march. So if you did do Herman with YSG, and then Zulang Herman, and then you've got a YSG, you just get Shajar and put them together. So Shajar with YSG. If you didn't invest in YSG, just try and get Ashurbanipal or even Chia Yung. Again, I haven't seen too many field reports of him, but to my knowledge, he's still really good on the field, and he does get good trades. But if you don't want to do that, Shajar with Ashurbanipal is really good, or even a Boudica with Ashurbanipal if you're not willing to risk it with those mighty heal commanders. But in my opinion, Shajar is just better than Boudica. So Shajar, Ashurbanipal, really good march. Gonna trade nice and decent, and it's gonna give you some good long-term value. In terms of your equipment, I've got a full equipment guide. You can just check out my most popular videos. It will be there. It's still relatively up to date. The only thing you'll end up doing, you want to get a chassis of the Glorious Goddess and a boots of the Glorious Goddess, and then once you hit Season of Conquest, you want to try and get the KVK weapon, which is the Hydra's Blast, and you want to try and get the KVK helmet, the Ancestral Mask of Night. So getting those 4 extra pieces of legendary equipment will give you the best set in the game, the 2-2-2 set. I've spoken about it a lot, and in Season of Conquest, it is going to be your strongest set. Other than that, you've pretty much completed the Archer Guide at that point. If you're looking to move towards 3 or more marches, I'd check out some of my more updated guides once the time has come for that, and that's going to give you a lot more information about moving towards 3, 4, 5, or even 6 Archer marches, which I don't really recommend. But if you're looking at 3 or more Archer marches, there will be more guides out in the future, so check those out. But for your first 2 at the moment, you're looking at Zulang with Herman, and then you're looking at like Shajar with Ashurbanipal, or with YSG if you invested in him in KVK1. One last quick tidbit I'll talk about is Museum Relics. If you have YSG expertise, I mean, just get his relic. It's good, it's going to give you value, and it's going to be one of the okay things in here. If you did spend money and you got access to Thutmose, or you got access to El Cid, which either one you picked, in my opinion, you should pick Thutmose, get their relic as well if you spent money. If you didn't spend money and you just got YSG, just use YSG's relic. It's going to be just as good as getting either of those commanders. But YSG is an overall stronger commander, so his relic is going to be slightly better. So, my opinion, YSG's relic is the most important. Then it would be Thutmose, and then it would be El Cid if you did spend some money. If you're a whale, then you don't even need to listen to this guide, just spend a bunch of money, and it doesn't even matter. But when it comes down to relics, YSG is going to be good, especially if you're running Shajar YSG or Herman YSG as one of your initial marches. Now, hopefully you found today's video helpful or at least interesting, and if you're interested in being an Archer main, I will let everyone know I do have a Discord server, and I respond to everyone that pings me. So if you ping me on that Discord server with any question, even if you think it's something a bit silly, like I've got these commanders and I want to know which commander I should invest in, I will try and respond within like 2 to 3 days. So if you join the server and ping me, I'll always respond with the most up-to-date advice for your account as I can. So when it comes to Rise of Kingdoms and commander investments, accounts really do matter, and pinging me is the best way to get advice. You can send pictures, you can DM me, whatever it is, I try to respond as quick as possible. So consider joining the Discord, links in the pinned comment and also in the description. Really good place for beginners to get some advice based on your account. So join the Discord, pinned comment and description. It's going to be a really good place to go. Other than that, I just want to say I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.